Coming into the grand finals, the San Francisco Shock had basically 4-0 shit blasted every other team in the lower bracket. And it was clear that after they had lost to Atlanta, and honestly, after they had beaten the London Spitfire, they actually found out a much better way of being able to play. They found their style, they understood the meta much more, this kind of stuff. And the Vancouver Titans, weirdly, even though they went through the upper bracket, they didn't get tested as much, and so they had some tough games against, like, NYXL got taken to 7, I think it was. Like, I think that was a 7 mapper in the winners bracket final. Fantastic match, by the way. But they had always been struggling with the Bastion kind of compositions. So I was expecting that coming into the grand finals, the Vancouver Titans would have really focused on Bastion, because this game was so difficult for them when they actually played into a Bastion. And we know that Shock played a lot of it. And it's really easy to tell when Shock is going to play Bastion comps, because they sub in Architect and Rascal. So, in theory, you should be able to get a great read on when they're going to do it, what maps they're going to do it on, that kind of shit. So, that's what I really expected Titans to have put a lot of time into. Additionally, because it was 2 weeks, like, look at that, 14th to the 29th, because it was a 2-week break between these two matches, I thought that would give enough time for kind of the momentum to settle down for the Shock. They'd both be going in it kind of fresh as top competitors. They would have had all of this practice time and stuff like that. So also, Titans were undefeated on control maps. So I expected the series to actually be fairly close. My prediction coming into it was a 4-2 to the San Francisco Shock, with Titans either taking both control maps or losing the second control map, which I thought might be Busan, but winning one of the other ones. Like maybe winning an escort map or something like that. So I thought the Shock would win. I think almost everybody thought the Shock would win. I think it was only Puckett and Achilleos out of all of the casting talent voted for the Titans in that. But it turns out that it was not a 4-2. It was a 4-0 stomp. And at the time, that kind of made sense. Right, let me say as well that when I actually watched this game live, one of the dumb things about being an analyst, weirdly, is that you don't get as much time to sit down and really watch and analyze the game as you do if you were sat at home, or like when I was doing my Visa Hell streams. Because when I'm doing my Visa Hell streams and I was watching Owl, all of my 100% of my attention is focused on the screen and like talking about what's happening and this kind of stuff. A bit more like a caster would have to do, although I'm not really building a narrative and I'm not thinking about my craft. So, you know, I've got even more of my brain power free. But when I was doing the grand finals stuff, I also had to build a bunch of sponsored stuff. I'm like constantly walking from the production truck up to the top. So I actually missed like large chunks of the game just trying to build things for sponsors and like sort out the halftime and stuff like that. So my impression at the end of this match was that it wasn't really a choke from the Titans. It was just a sign of how unbelievably dominant the San Francisco Shock were. When I went back and watched it, I now believe it was not just a choke, but a Giga Ultra choke from the Titans. And the Shock were playing incredibly. Like, the Shock were excellent, but it wasn't that they were just, like, so much better than everybody else. It was like, Shock were better than everybody else, but my god, Titans choked as well. I went back and I watched this series and I was like, what the fuck are they doing? Because the Titans in this series played a very decent default game, and then NYXL threw some interesting stuff at them, and they had to adapt, but in general, they were clutch. They had like a good understanding of what they wanted to do. It wasn't as good as the San Francisco Shock, but it was pretty decent. And they just really struggled with the Bastion comps. In this, the opening map is Lijiang Tower, and I just want to show you some of the moments here, because Lijiang Tower was... Right, Vancouver Titans are undefeated on Lijiang Tower. They are undefeated on all control maps. And they just screw the pooch, which is a fantastic American saying. They just fucked the dog. They absolutely messed it up. It was really bad. So this is my theory. This is what I want to kind of showcase to you, is the amount of mistakes that the Vancouver Titans were making. And we'll also try and point out how many great kind of contrasting excellent plays the San Francisco Shock made in an attempt to not just, you know, shitpile on the Vancouver Titans. But I think they got boomed. Like, I don't know, because, you know, Titans have been second place so many times. Maybe they choke when it gets to the big stage. Maybe there was some kind of internal strife. I've heard some stories about what happened, but I can't really share them. I have a feeling that the Vancouver Titans mega choked this. And immediately, as soon as I saw this pick from Twilight, I knew the series was over. Like, I actually thought, as soon as I saw Twilight and Brig, oh, they are fucked. The reason for this is that while some people might think from like a theoretical point of view that saving a strat like this might be cool for the grand finals, you don't save strats for the grand finals. Like, the meta has already been figured out. This is just a worse comp. And the reason why they're running it is fairly obvious, right? Sinatra is the big playmaker for the San Francisco Shock. And so in theory, if you have a Brig, when Sinatra goes forwards and tries to get aggressive on your back line or tries to put pressure on your front line, you want to try and stun him, you want to try and rock him, you want to try and take him out, you want to try and like bash him, rock him, halt him, all of these things, counterpunch him. It just gives you another tool to be able to deal with it. Now, in reality, what it did was, it meant that Twilight was fucking useless for the whole of the beginning of this. It totally screwed them in terms of their ult economy. It ruined Titan's greatest strength, which is their neutral game, rather than their ult game. It just fucked them. And it suggests that they don't believe in themselves. They don't believe in themselves well enough to go up against the Shock in the neutral game. The only thing that I had faith in the Titans to be able to beat the Shock in was their neutral game on control maps. And they don't even have faith in themselves to be able to do that. I mean, as soon as I saw this, I was like, oh, it's over. It's absolutely over. So let's take a look at what happens here. So, the Vancouver Titans come out of spawn. Hello. Just going to scroll down the time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right, someone in my chat is saying the Brig wasn't a terrible idea, but Twilight and the Titans had no clue to play around it. I want to be clear, the Brig was a terrible idea, because although this sounds like it might work in theory, there are just so many ways of playing around it. Like, so many ways. Your front line is going to get massacred, because as soon as Choyobin takes a flank angle and starts putting spam behind shields, and as soon as he works with Sinatra to make sure that they can get out free, all they're going to do is pile damage into your front line, and the Brig isn't going to be able to get any value. And it's such an easy adaptation. All it means is Sinatra doesn't go for the back line, or he just instead goes for the front line, and they slowly squeeze you out. It's like, it's actually just an objectively worse composition that will only catch you off guard if you're an unprepared team. You can't be pulling this shit out against the best team in the world. There are certain strats that will catch teams off guard, like contenders teams. Like, both of these teams were playing against contenders teams, scrimming against them. People like Atlanta Academy. Against contenders teams, this strat will work because they won't know how to deal with it. But for a team like the San Francisco Shock, who are super adaptable and know what the fuck they're doing, that is just not going to work. Okay, so the first thing to point out here as well is that for some reason, Slime is not with Sominsu, and so Slime instead is with the rest of his team, which means that Sominsu isn't able to get into the fight as quickly as Striker is on the other side of it. And because of their the way that they've set up as well, they actually lose a lot of positioning here. The shields are laid down super early, and the punch comes in really early as well from Sinatra. And there isn't really an expectation of of them knowing that Shock are going to be this aggressive. The other thing as well, Tizzy is just unprepared to use his Fortify early on. He should be able to hear from this distance the punch charging up, and he doesn't use his Fortify, gets slammed against the wall, and then wastes his Fortify afterwards anyway. So straight off the bat, we've got a crappy team comp that indicates that they don't have faith in what they're doing. They don't taxi Sominsu into the fight, and they haven't set up to be aggressive, and Tizzy's wasted his Fortify. Just like straight off the bat. So right at the beginning, you've got a vastly superior position for the San Francisco Shock. You've also got Haxel just flanking on his own. Right? So, clearly the plan here is for Haxel to come around the side and try and make a play into the backlines while you try and bait Sinatra into going for something similar and catch him with Twilight. And you see Twilight playing at the front here as well because he's aiming for a bash on Sinatra. He's trying to get value out of it. Haxel goes in, misses his punch. Unfortunate, but manages to get an uppercut on a couple of people anyway. The problem, though, is that let's try and show you guys like how the setup works. These people are all pushing from this direction. Because Haxel has flanked around here and then had to jump back into the rest of his team, he is now with everybody else just looking forwards. So they've got a shield looking here. Janu can only really put the shield here as well. And all the rest of their damage is coming from this angle. Whereas the San Francisco Shock have set Smurf up here with his shield, with Striker. And then they've got Sinatra and Choyobin, who Choyobin's actually up there, but I just drew the circle wrong, because that's where Choyobin's going to end up. They come around the other side, so they've got like 2 angles on them, right? So clearly the setup is just already so much better for the San Francisco Shock. And instead of realizing that they're fucked and trying to back off a little bit into this choke point and see if you can bait them into pushing Twilight and get value out of it, they try and hold their ground. And it's just... It's not going to be particularly successful. I'm going to slow it down a little bit here. Whoop. So Janu gets a nice kill onto Violet just by playing aggressively and getting a lot of damage through. And Smurf has taken damage from Haxel as well. But the key is this kind of pincer, because the Orisa here with his Moira and his... yeah, the Orisa and the Moira. I don't know why I'm saying somebody else. The Orisa here with his Moira, these guys aren't really like that important. They're just operating the front line. But the flank is actually getting pinched from both sides. Like, Striker's flank here is excellent, alongside Striker's punches. They're just going to get so much value in this little choke point, especially with Choyobin slamming damage in behind. And Twilight can't output any damage as well. Any healing. Twilight has done absolutely nothing here. Haxel's managed to find a little bit of damage, but Sinatra's just in the perfect position. And once he's in the backlines here, just Sinatra can do everything. And it's not like... It kind of seems from the kill feed like it was a battle between who could do the most between Sinatra and Haxel. But as soon as Sinatra gets into this position and there's nobody to contest him, he's just free to murder everyone. And you're going to lose that fight. Okay, so now... So they won that fight. Twilight's on Brig, which means that he's got to swap off. They also managed to generate ults way faster. So Sinatra managed to gen his ult super fast as well. You know, Haxel came around the side and was just trying to do damage to the front line. He didn't get that amazing angle into the back because Janu was playing at the front with Tizzy instead of the way that they've set it up, where it's Choyobin and Sinatra kind of syncing up together. So Shock's ahead in the ult game in terms of their like a good ult that they can try and use. And you can win a fight with a Meteor Strike if you can get a halt in the same place as well. So, Twilight back in the fight, again playing Brig, which I don't know why. It doesn't really make sense to me. Now, here's the next issue, because Tizzy and Slime are on their way back. Slime is taxiing Tizzy. These guys are pushed up, all the way up here. Like, really far up. And they don't have any idea that Shock are going to try and initiate down here. This is like a classic example of nerves for me, for the Vancouver Titans. Why are they trying to take a 4v6 on the repush when their Orisa is back in Guatemala, just doing nothing? What is the purpose of this? I don't know. I don't know why they're pushed up so far. Maybe they're expecting to be playing against the kind of opponent that would be holding in these kind of positions, where they'd be holding like this, with maybe like you have Choyobin and Sinatra playing up on the high ground, and you have the rest of the team playing back around here. And you have, you know, the Reaper is off doing little Reaper things like over here or something. Like, this would be a very passive position. But you're playing against the San Francisco Shock. And on Lijiang Tower, especially with the ultimates that this kind of composition has, you want to be fighting in these close choke points. You want to be fighting here. You want to be fighting here. Not quite down there, but you want to be fighting like here on the mini health pack and in the White Room. So instead, the Vancouver Titans just get shredded here. They just get bopped. Their Orisa is nowhere to be seen. And they get engaged upon. Twilight, again, does absolutely nothing. Meteor Strike in. Great halt that sucks up 5 of them. And they managed to get 2 kills out of it and just destroy Twilight. So they managed to win that fight with only 1 ult as well. And at this point, the round is over. Actually, I'm not using hyperbole. Like, I'm not exaggerating. The round is actually over right now. Because Twilight has to swap off this hero. That negates his ult straight back to 0. The Vancouver Titans have been killed now twice, even with all of this stuff up. As long as the Shock can rotate their ults, they're going to be able to get to a position where they're holding like 70% plus, and even if the Titans are able to win that final fight, the Shock just have to build ults and be able to push back in. In all likelihood, they've already screwed themselves by ruining two fights. What ruined it for them? The Titans had a bad plan of how to engage the first fight, a bad composition, and didn't take space the right way with their Sigma. And then in the second one, they just run in without Tizzy there. So what do the Shock have available this time? They can win this fight just with a Flux. Again, by playing aggressive in white, they can win just with a Flux. With a Halt Flux, they can win against whatever the Titans have, because Slime doesn't have his beat available. I can't exactly remember what they did in this push, but I'm pretty sure they used a Flux aggressively. Let's take a look at it from the Titans' perspective. So Titans rally engage, which is just worse than Coalescence in this meta. They come forwards. Tizzy's used his Fortify. They've used shields. Tizzy is weak because his shields, like, okay, they have rally, but they're blasting him with the Coalescence, doing damage to him, and then running past him. This kind of shit. And Twilight doesn't have the heals to be able to keep him alive. Like, look at the health difference here, because they're running a Brigitte. And has Twilight done anything this entire round so far? No. Nothing. Fatty Flux. Catches a bunch of them. Incredible damage. The definition of brilliance, as Worms would say. And they managed to win. So they won the first fight raw. They won the second fight with Sinatra's ult. And they won the third fight with both of these ults. And Twilight's got to swap off here. I mean, Twilight should have swapped off earlier, but he didn't, you know. Alright, so let's take a look at the next fight. Now, to Titan's credit, they're like, even having lost 3 fights here, they still haven't ticked up too much time on the clock. It's 60%. Often the round would genuinely like be over at this point. It would be more like 80% because, you know, Titans are playing fast and getting in their face, and also Shock are holding very aggressively. But now Shock don't really have ults where they want to play mad aggro, because the Titans also have ults of their own. But they're still going to play kind of forward in these choke points. Oh, this is where Sinatra just makes a misplay. Like, just a literal misplay. He charges up his punch, and Haxel charges up his punch because he can hear it, and Sinatra just falls over. That's just an actual misplay by Sinatra. You got way too greedy there. And then with Sinatra down, I don't really know why the Shock engage ults into this either. They think it's winnable, and I suppose Sinatra does come back off spawn very quickly. But using your bongo and your beat, and then your Death Blossom as well, and the Titans just eat it up. Haxel uses his Meteor Strike just to kill the bongo there, which I think is the right move. That's something that you start seeing people do more and more, especially in this series, because the bongo is just an outrageous ultimate. So I think Shock overinvested there. They didn't manage to find value out of their ultimates, so they kind of gift them this fight. so far we've seen very decisive play from the San Francisco Shock, but then also just a very greedy play by Sinatra and an overinvestment of ults. Now, here's the other thing. You could say, oh, I wonder if this was really big-brained because they're trying to use their ults to force them out of the Titans so that they get an easier chance of pushing. Because on Lijiang, if you are trying to push into a team that has 6 ults up, it's so difficult to be able to get all the way through here. So if you're in a 6 ult v 6 ult, I would say almost definitely the team defending has advantage. So it's possible that the San Francisco Shock made that call knowing that they would lose, just trying to force ults out of the Vancouver Titans. Because you're never going to force ults out of the Titans unless you use ults of their own. Having said that, I think that that's a little bit of like a, what do you say? Like, very generous to the San Francisco Shock. They used their bongo and they used beat, which are both very powerful ults, and they didn't force bongo out of the Vancouver Titans, and they now don't have beat to counter the flux. So even if they were trying to force ults out of the Titans should be able to win the next fight with an aggressive flux. And then if they need to, they can use the bongo as well. So the Titans should absolutely be in control of this point for quite a while. It doesn't really matter that the Shock managed to force beat and stuff out of them. Yeah, they used Death Blossoms. They used Death Blossom in the fight as well. Striker had it. So, coming back into this, the Titans you would expect to be in a position to win. Oh, this is actually something really interesting though. Because what you see at the end of this fight is that So Min-soo goes down. And so... Hello. What? Brenna's just come into my room looking like this. Looking like this. Do I want to play some Apex? Is that what you're asking me? I can't tell. Through the disgusting mess of bread that you have in your mouth. You absolute filth beast. You look like a goose. No, leave, please. No, I don't want to play some Apex. Stop spitting crumbs out. Ah! You fucking filth wizard. Friend only to the pig and the rat. That's disgusting. Okay. Right. Well. Okay, so So Min-soo gets a not a slow spawn. There's no difference in the time of the spawns. But here's another thing. Now, I saw this while I was pulling plays and stuff for potential insights on the first map. And it made me think to myself while I was watching the game, what are the Titans doing here? Now, this is going to feel like mad armchair analysis speculation, but I want you to kind of run with me here. Give me the benefit of the doubt, and I'll try and weave this narrative together, okay? Are you with me, chat? Thank you. I hope you're with me. So, So Min-soo dies. Sinatra goes in and trades for him at the end. That means that So Min-soo spawns all the way back here and has to get back into the fight. The Titans ideally would want to hold and take a gravitic flux kind of here, where as the rest of the Shock push in. That would be their ideal. Or they'd hold up here, and if they come up this avenue, they'd have a big gravitic flux here. Basically, they want to play aggressive and catch them in a gravitic flux. But Slime goes back to taxi So Min-soo to be able to bring him back to the point. That in itself, not terrible. But what I thought was really weird is how much everybody... This is where the armchair analysis thing comes in. I'm looking at Tizzy, and he looks so confused by this. Where is he? Where is Tizzy? Okay, let's wind back a little bit. He looks really confused. So this fight happens. They kind of get gifted the point. They cap it up. Sinatra is the last guy in. Sinatra comes in. Manages to find So Min-soo. They kill Sinatra. Now, the call here is either to hold forward and wait for So Min-soo to come back in and try and finish him off with like bongos and gravitic flux and hope that So Min-soo can get back in. Or you send Lucio back to taxi and you've got to hold a more passive position. Now for Tizzy, they look like they're going to go forwards. Wait, was it Tizzy? And then he's looking back towards the taxi that's happening. He's looking back towards the taxi as if he didn't realize that this is happening and realizes suddenly that they're in another 4v6. The same as the 4v6 that happened last time when Slime was taxiing Tizzy. Again, they kind of seem totally unaware that they're in a 4v6. Like they're panicking. It really seems like a weird nervous thing. If you look at the rest of their team as well, during this, there's a bunch of them that just like look over to where Slime is and they're like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? As if they don't realize what's going on. So like Slime caps, and they go back, And you get Haxal goes back towards them. Then Janu and Tizzy both look that way. As Twilight comes back, Janu keeps looking that way to like figure out where he is. Tizzy sends another look back towards the spawn, as if they're trying to figure out like how quick it's going to be and where they should be positioned and stuff. But this stuff should come so naturally, I feel, to a team like the Titans. Their teamwork is like their top thing. Their comms have always seemed super clean. Like they're able to pull off these things with no worries. They position themselves in the best places, this kind of stuff. And yet they twice now, at the beginning of Lijiang in the first round, have felt like they didn't know that they were in a 4v6 situation. Which I think is really odd. Now, the larger, even if that is some armchair analysis kind of speculation on what was going on in the Titans' head, even if they always knew that Slime and Sominsu were getting taxied back in, and they were always going to hold this kind of passive position, the fact that Sominsu died means that they can't play that aggressive with the Flux. Now, as it happens, Slime and Sominsu are actually kind of getting back. So if they had been holding here, say Tizzy had been holding here, well, Sominsu's going to be back by the time you use an aggressive Flux anyway. So it was still the wrong call, in my opinion, to like back off and play really passive here. In order to get value out of the Gravitic Flux that Janu has, you want to be trying to play aggressive. So the both Doomfists come in. The Bongo is dropped. Both Sigmas shield their Doomfist to make sure that nothing's happening. So Janu is actually, you know, covering for Haxal in this scenario, in this situation. They go back a little bit, but this setup where they have Choyobin and Sinatra here, and the other 4 players pushing forwards, just ends up with an impossible hold for the Titans. They haven't used any of their ults aggressively. This Gravitic Flux is not an aggressive one. It's not in a choke point. Striker's going to Wraith form out. Violet could fade out. Moth's the only person that's going to get caught in it. This is not effective. So in a fight where the Vancouver Titans definitely should have won, because they had Flux and they had Bongo, the Shock just kind of waltzed in and destroyed them. Take a look again at where the Sigma and Doomfist play for both teams. So the Bongo is out. Sigma and Doomfist. And instead of contesting this high ground and making sure that they stay in control of it, so that Tizzy's barrier isn't useless, they're forced to drop back. Even though they have Bongo, they drop back from contesting Choyobin and Sinatra. And then as Sinatra engages with his Meteor Strike, they fall to pieces. I don't know. Not good performance from the Titans, honestly. Thoughts on Brig in this match? I think the Brig was a bad pick. Very bad pick. I think it was a sign that they were uncomfortable in taking the default fight against the San Francisco Shock. Wanted to kind of cheese them a little bit. Also, I just want to say, Janu on Wrecking Ball through the next point. I think it's not bad here, obviously, because he's trying to get back and touch the point. But in general. Also, wait, I've forgotten another thing as well that I saw when I was rewatching. For some reason, Slime doesn't hide to try and touch the point. Like, okay, you know that the San Francisco Shock are going to cap here, and you have to touch somewhere between 97 to 100%. Okay? Just at any point there. So, because everybody else is dead, I'm sure what would normally happen if the Titans were playing is that Slime would hide, and then he would zip back in when it got to 97%. But for some reason, in the grand finals, they kept going fucking Rhine Wrecking Ball. This happened on the next point as well, where Tizzy goes Rhine and Janu goes Wrecking Ball to contest. Like it's their overtime comp is Slime dying and getting staggered, and then Janu playing Wrecking Ball. I don't understand it. I don't know why they do this, but they do it on the next point as well. You're never going to win with Rhine Wrecking Ball. I mean, you were probably never going to win that overtime push anyway, but at least you had some semblance of a chance if you had Slime touch it. Anyway, fuck knows. They lose this fight. Surprise, surprise. Here's the next one. I was looking at this, right? And I was like, oh my sweet Jesus, what the fuck are they doing? Okay, look at this. I think I saw this in a Reddit clip or something. And then this was what made me rewatch the game and think about whether or not it was a throw. Look at this, or a choke rather. Look at this fucker. Okay, so Titans roll out with So Min-soo. They're going to teleport forwards, you know, around to there, and they're going to send everybody through the teleport. So Min-soo's going to go Reaper, and then they're going to push around here. And the idea is normally kind of like your Doomfist goes around here, and the rest of you guys come around the back, and you play this kind of angle. Or sometimes you come around the front, and you want to try and play this angle. But generally speaking, the team that's in control of the point, I think, has a kind of advantage on how they want to play, because their Doomfist has more room to be able to kind of work around the back, work around these sides. If you get pressured on the point, you can fall back and use these things as cover, and you can still recontest onto the point. Whereas the team that's here, it's more difficult to use this central pillar as cover than it is to use these side pillars as cover. So, generally speaking, I think on Night Market, you get a better rollout if you go around the side while setting up potentially somebody to do a flank through the lion area. Look at this. I will say, I wasn't the person that found this, but I think this is crazy. I can't remember who the person that found it was. So So Min-soo builds his teleporter. Tizzy has a stroke. So Min-soo swaps to Reaper before Tizzy goes in the teleporter and gallops his way like the charge of the fucking light brigade towards the point because he's missed the telly. If that isn't... If this isn't an indication that the Vancouver Titans did not have their heads in this game, I don't know what is. Like, you think about it. They open up with a brig that doesn't make any sense, and it seems to indicate they don't have faith in their comp. They really fuck up one of their fights where they take a 4v6 because nobody communicates that Tizzy isn't in the fight. He's coming off respawn. Then they almost take another 4v6, panic, go way too defensive, and end up losing that fight. Then they come into this round, and Tizzy misses the goddamn teleporter. I mean, look at this in full speed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Round 2. Capture the objective.
Why does Tizzy walk down to the end of the ramp? I don't know. But by the time he gets back, it's gone. The Moira didn't take the teleporter either. And we're just stuck with a weird situation where, okay, it doesn't actually affect the setup for the Vancouver Titans, really, because they're just going to take control of this area and they're going to play through these doors and, like, try and spam through. But they are mentally not in this. They are boomed. I don't know what the fuck... Did Pajon give them some kind of roughing before the fight? Before the grand finals? Did a fan spook them? Did Super walk over and tell them they were about to get mega boomed and suddenly they could understand fluent English and Twitch spam and realized what he was saying and got shook? What happened? I don't know. These guys shouldn't have stage fright because they have the most experience of some of any players. I mean, apart from people like London or... I mean, even New York haven't played on stages like the Titans have. The Titans have been in Apex Final after Apex Final. They've played at APAC Premier. They've played in front of big crowds. No crowd as big as Wells Fargo, sure. But the San Francisco Shock haven't played in front of big crowds. Striker hasn't played in front of big crowds. He's only played at the Blizzard Arena. Same with Sinatra. Same with Smurf. Same with Choyobin. As far as I can remember, same with Moth. I think Violet has played in like a Contenders Final that had a decent crowd, I think. But, like, the Titans should have some level of unboomable mental. And yet they're acting like they are boomed. Why wasn't it double elim for the finals? Because nobody wanted to watch the boring second 4-0. No, actually, just because it's a scheduling thing and it's the way that TI is done and it makes things more hype. This kind of stuff. Right. So, yeah, I've never seen a more strong indicator of a mental boom before in my life. All right, let's have a look at this then. The default. Now, here's what I want to mention, because this was also one of the fights that I was thinking about breaking down for an insights in the grand finals. The thing that I wanted to focus on is how well the Titans zone out Sinatraa in this fight. And the way that Titans take this fight is, generally speaking, how I model Titans in my head as taking most fights. So let me kind of lay out how I expect Titans to take fights in general. When there's no ults on the board, the neutral game, I really respect Titans in this meta as the best neutral game team there is. So like on control points, you're just fighting over an area, no ults up. Who's going to win? Your money's on the Titans most of the time, in my opinion. Maybe not against the Shock, but against every other team in the league, your money's on the Titans. Now, why? Why is that? Tizzy and Janu work very well to be able to secure aggressive shield positions for Tizzy, and Janu makes sure that they approach with the Sigma barrier and can get these shields in a nice position. He kind of syncs up with Tizzy to be able to get him in position first. He doesn't take off angles and try and spam too much and have his shield in a weird position where it doesn't help his Orisa. He actually lets the Orisa approach first, using his shield, and then allows Tizzy to lay down his shield. In the meantime, so while you've got your Orisa and your Sigma, something like this, in the meantime, Haxel will frequently come along with them and target the enemy Orisa, and they'll really try and like punch the enemy Orisa back away from their shield so that you can take that space instead. So like, they'll approach with the Sigma shield, they'll punch the enemy Orisa out of position or do damage to them, or punch the enemy Sigma out of position, and try and really bully the tank line backwards. And as they bully the tank line backwards, they'll threaten to push Sominsu into aggressive angles where he'll TP behind them, he'll draw everybody else's attention, and then he'll just kind of wraith form out. And he's not really too much of a threat, but he draws eyes as the rest of the Vancouver Titans are coming forwards. And this is generally speaking how the Vancouver Titans have won so many neutral games, in my opinion, is because they put a lot of pressure, a lot of focus on gaining position in fights and neutralizing the enemy Orisa. And once the enemy Orisa's shield is taken out of the game, and once she's used Fortify, and if she's a bit weak and all of the healing resources are going towards her, you have a much better opportunity of then taking off angles. You know, once you've got all of this space, because you now control all of this, like all of this area, once your shield is here, and if their shield is here, they don't control this area, like that's yours still. So once you've kind of pushed these guys back, you can set up these off angles, or you can push aggressively upwards and take these kind of off angles. So that, in my opinion, is what made the Titans so strong. And this is a good fight for them, where they're able to stop Sinatraa getting into a great position. Now, I want to watch this fight first from free cam and then from Sinatra's point of view, so that I can show you guys kind of the overall flow of the fight and then how much Sinatraa was bullied out of position. But I'm going to watch it in half speed. So remember, Titans were late to this fight. So Sominsu TP's up over there, and he's a distraction as Haxel punches the enemy Orisa backwards, and Tizzy comes in and manages to place down an aggressive shield.
Show shock rollout on night market, thank.
Streamer, please show shock rollout on night market. Okay, yeah, we'll do, Drew. I'll do it after this fight, though. So they punch back the enemy Orisa. So Smurf is in there. They've also used the halt to be able to do damage. That uppercut was aimed to time with the halt. So now they've gained a lot of space. Now, the thing that I said about Janu going with Tizzy and approaching with the Sigma barrier, they don't do it this time. They send Janu around here so that they can buy even more space. So they've got this space, they've got this space, and Shock have got, really they're working off this kind of area. It's difficult for Shock to retake room without Sinatraa going on a big flank. And when Sinatra's in their backlines, that's going to force the Titans to turn around. That's when the Shock can regain some space. So you can see here that huge amount of damage done to the San Francisco Shock. Both of their supports very weak. They took space very aggressively, the Vancouver Titans. Haxel was part of that. And Janu was able to do a lot of damage onto their backline. Now, in the meantime, Sinatra's tried to go for a flank, but Slime has booped him away, and Slime is trying to do a little bit to deal with him. Sinatra comes in, takes another position. This isn't a flank. This isn't like, I'm threatening to kill you all kind of flank. He's just over here getting ready, waiting for his cooldowns to come off, ready to go for another play. So, it's a nice off angle. This is a good position for Sinatra, but it will require the rest of his team to help him get in, and it's not mega dangerous. It's not like the Titans have to put a lot of resources into worrying about him, but Sinatra could get a lot of work done from this angle. Haxel again punches back the enemy Sigma, making sure that Choyobin can't take very much space with his shielding. As Haxel gets his cooldowns recovered, the Titans have backed up a little bit. Haxel again trying to punish the tank line, goes on Smurf. Sinatra comes out, gets halted. A big 5-man halt comes out from Tizzy, which is huge. Sinatra is forced to disappear, run away. Haxel comes in, gets a slam onto 4 players, which does all of the CC, basically onto the entire Shock team. And they're able to, they do a lot of damage to Smurf and Choyobin. Now, Smurf's shield has not been useful this whole fight, because of the bullying way in which Titans take space. This kind of gameplay, this kind of strat from the Titans, is one of the reasons why I thought they would win Lijiang fairly handily. And I think if the Titans hadn't really fucked up with that Brig strat, and really fucked up with their lack of awareness and nerves and their choking on the first round, I think we could have had a scenario where Titans took Lijiang. But Titans were all over the place. They made way too many mistakes. Titans, when they play their best, are a team that can really give Shock a great game. But Titans had way too many mistakes in this grand final. So there are moments where they play well like this, and they kind of seem like they're just going to run you over. So let's rewatch this fight from Sinatra's point of view to kind of see how he was zoned out so well. So I'm going to go right back to the beginning. So here is Sinatra. I'm actually going to go back a little further, and I'll show you guys the rollout for them first.
4, 3, 2.
Because honestly, I haven't watched this.
Round.
But I'm going to assume they don't fuck it up.
The objective.
Okay, so amazingly, the San Francisco Shock managed to execute a teleporter strat. I mean, but it's not hard to do as long as everybody's not nervous. And I'm not saying it's like, I don't mean this in like a, it's not hard, what the fuck are you doing, you idiots? I mean literally like, it isn't hard. It's a very, very simple thing to execute that the Titans have done hundreds of times. Like the amount of scrims they've played on Lijiang must be, must it be 100? I don't know. It must be many, many tens of times that they have played Lijiang on this meta. And they will have done the exact same thing. The amount of times they've fucked it up is probably like 2. And one of them's in the grand finals. That I don't believe that that's a coincidence. I think they were pretty rattled. The comms all over the place, worrying about strategies, maybe some discord within the team because of how badly the first round went. 2. Yeah, 2. So then Striker switches over to Reaper. He goes in. They don't... See, this is different to Control Center. Your Lucio should be speed boosting these guys forward because it's imperative that your tanks get there early if you're trying to set up on the point. It's not imperative that your Reaper gets there early. Whereas with Control Center, I think you could definitely argue that your Reaper getting there at the same time as the rest of your team is actually pretty important. But okay. Let's go back to watching Sinatra. Their team's scrim partners for the grand finals, as far as I'm aware, were contenders teams like Atlanta Academy and the top Korean contenders teams. And as far as I'm aware, they beat almost, I think, as far as I've been told, or as far as has been alluded to, they beat them all really handily. But it's difficult to get great scrims when you're very far above the level of your opponents. Drew, thank you very much for a gifted sub. 138 gifted subs. That is wild. Thank you very much, Drew. Okay, so while the rest of the San Francisco Shock is going around the back, around coast, Sinatra is looking to see if he can set up a flank this side. But he sees he's been spotted, and it's not like these guys have already taken the porch courtyard area. I don't know what the fuck that's called, actually. The Titans were actively moving over to the right-hand side here. So Sinatra's like, oh, fuck, I've been spotted. I've been rumbled, lads. So he's out of there. So immediately, Sinatra's first plan has been rumbled. Sinatra's second plan is to play from this kind of angle. Wait for the Titans to engage. He hears a Doomfist punching in. He's going to punch. He punches. First looks at the halt, but they've already used the punch ability that would be used on the halt. Sees if he can go for somebody. Gets the Sigma. Takes a little bit of damage. Tries to get out because the rest of his team's taken so much damage they wouldn't be able to. He wouldn't be able to help them. He tries to go for a punch there, but Slime boops him away. So Slime is the person who's on anti-Sinatra duty. Because we've got a small enclosed space, Slime can do so much work with how he denies Sinatra. So while the rest of their team all focus on Titans pushing forwards, Slime denies Sinatra, survives the punch because he's so far away. Sinatra gets counter-punched by Haxal and is forced to escape again, and then gets killed by So Min-soo. So Sinatra was really the only player, apart from potentially Striker, that could have got anything done in that fight and really reversed the tide for the San Francisco Shock. Because when your front line's getting battered, you really have to go for flanks and try and make something happen and get into their back lines, at least to relieve pressure, if not to get a pick. And he wasn't able to do anything because Slime was on his dick. Haxal then managed to hop on there for a sec, and So Min-soo finished him off. So okay, so that was the only. I actually pulled that entire team fight in case the Titans won Lijiang. Like, that was going to be my analysis for the halftime if Titans won Lijiang, was how well they played that opener after losing the first round. The problem is, they then just fucked up all the rest of this point. Not all the rest of it, to be fair. They had some moments where they did okay. But generally speaking, they were nowhere near as good as the Shock. So, something I really want to look at up at top here is this Pincer movement to take control of the high ground from Choyobin and from Sinatra. They both push in from different angles to force Haxal away from the high ground. You could try and contest this by putting So Min-soo up there as well, and have him hold either here or here with an opportunity to flank up and around the back. But they decide not to. Instead, they give up the high ground. And so this area, every single time on a repush, is taken super easily by the San Francisco Shock. That means that you can't hold in positions where you would be vulnerable to the high ground. Because you're not committing resources to controlling the high ground, you can't hold here. I'm actually not going to draw X's, I'm going to draw Orisa barriers. So you can't hold your Orisa barrier here because they're going to do damage to the side of it. You can hold your Orisa barrier here, but you have to be careful not to swing this way. You always have to retreat into the courtyard because they have control of this area, the San Francisco Shock, and they're going to be able to have control of this side flank as well. So if you hold where Tizzy is currently holding, the area that you control is this area, right? It's like this area. You can't really commit resources into holding this flank, but you can certainly push aggressive into this choke. Like you can hold this choke, but if you let them through the choke, you can't hold this anymore. But you can't hold over here. You can't hold this door. You can't stop them coming through there if you give up top, because they're just going to rain damage on you from behind. So if you don't hold top, if you don't even try and contest it, you can only hold this door. So let's see how this works. So a rock from Haxel, he actually dodges it with an uppercut, which is pretty sick. And then manages to get out. Both coalescences are traded here. Choyobin drops down from the high ground just to assist. And Sominsu's flank is actually really nice. If Choyobin had stayed on the high ground, I think that Titans would have been pressured out of this position. But Sominsu's in a nice position where he can really turn Choyobin's attention. And that sets up Haxel to go in for a big play. And because they've been able to... Because Shock were pushing from this angle, and they've held them here, which is the only place that the Titans were actually able to properly hold, they can set up for another really lovely Tizzy Halt Meteor Strike. So this Halt Meteor Strike, huge, manages to kill 4. And then I think Haxel manages to kill Choyobin as well. So really sick. But there were ways around that. Like, because they gave up top, you could have instead rotated around here, forced them out of courtyard, and then just taken another, like, I'm in control of this area and we are pushing into the point. It would have been slow, but that would have been like a better way to force the issue for the San Francisco Shock, which I think they do in the next fight. So Haxel is on the high ground this time. Where is Sominsu? I thought Sominsu was on the high ground this fight. No, he's not. Does he go high ground? No, he doesn't. So Sominsu's always looking at the low ground. But Sominsu can't hold this. Like, even if they wanted to, they can't hold this. But they do actually rotate over to the right a little bit. So this is, I believe... This is why I was saying before, I don't think you can hold an Orisa barrier here when you give up the high ground. Because Choyobin can do damage from over here and get value out of his shield, and Sinatra can go for anything you like. Whereas you don't have high ground to work from yourself, and if they wanted to, they could push all the way down here as well. So this to me seems... It seems so difficult for Titans to be able to hold this entire area. That seems pretty fucking difficult. And you can't push them in this doorway like you could push them in that doorway, because they'll just do damage to you behind, or they could even rotate around you. So this isn't a good hold from the Titans. This is just like not great positioning. Striker gets in the back, but Haxel deals with him. Unfortunately, they're too far ahead. And Janu tries to use a Gravitic Flux here, but they don't go aggressive. So they're trying to hold this choke point aggro. But Haxel has to punch backwards because Striker is on a flank. And although they are fluxing in a choke point, they haven't managed to find key targets, and they're pushing into... Moth has a sound barrier, so you're not gonna win a fight if you flux into a sound barrier. You can force out the sound barrier and win the fight afterwards, maybe, but you can't just win based on the sound barrier, based on the flux, which it feels like Titans were trying to do. Because what is Titans' plan after this flux? Like, look at everyone's positioning after the flux. Like, what? How were they gonna win that fight afterwards? Axel is here, Janu is here, Slime is back here, Twilight back here. Like, you can't hold them in a place because they're already out the choke point when you flux them. You flux like here, they were already coming forwards. If instead you went aggressive and you fluxed them here while they were inside, if you really like rammed into them, fluxed aggro, and tried to win off that flux, maybe that's better. But because you've already given up the high ground, you're just going to get spammed from behind, and I think you lose anyway. So I just think holding here with an Orisa barrier was not the play. I think they should have probably just like held here like they did before, and when everybody came around here, they should have just fallen back to the point. And then they can just take this, like, you know, default engagement that they were taking beforehand, where they just have an opportunity to hold on and keep the time ticking up. Instead, they just overcommit to a fight that they weren't prepared to deal with. Now, also weirdly, Slime didn't use his sound barrier. But I've only just noticed that now. I didn't notice that when I was rewatching last time. So what happens with Slime? Oh, Moth has actually just got a faster sound barrier, for starters. Slime doesn't even realize that Striker's on Twilight in the back. When the beat comes in, he's already lost Somitsu, and he's down to 7 health, so yeah, they can't do anything about that. Okay. Where is Tizzy? Tizzy was miles away. Miles away. Hey, Hung. How's it going? Sweet Sapphic Louise, thank you very much for the 2 months. Okay, so the San Francisco Shock. 2 months sees the meands of production. That's horrific, Sweet Sapphic Louise. That's awful. Nom nom de 1%. Colon 3. Awful, awful. So, what the Shock could do here is play aggro with the. So they're holding their Orisa barrier here. So, if the Titans come from this avenue, they could try and flux them, play aggro with a flux. When the sound barrier comes out from Slime, they can back up and they can take another fight there. And you can try and take that engagement with the bongos or with the DPS ults that you have, all of that shit. Instead, they play really passive, and I actually don't know why the Shock were playing passive here. I don't know what they were after. Because, in my opinion, you should be at least trying to put some spam on them if they come through this doorway. If instead they come through top, or they come through this side, then you have to back off. But if they're coming through the bottom, you might as well try and fight them, because you can always back off if you want to. But you should at least try and play aggro, you know, invest a flux or a bongo and see if you can get an advantage in the fight. If you don't, you can just back off. But instead, what it looks like they're playing for is Striker to find a surprise pick, which is a bit weird. It's like a bit cheesy. I think that's the best play. So instead, Striker goes for this play. They use the flux here, which to me is really weird. If you're gonna aggressively flux, if you're gonna flux into a beat, right? Then why not do it here when they were all coming through here instead of here when some of them are around here? I don't think he even gets value out of this at all. Does he get anyone? He gets Somitsu. He only gets Somitsu in this flux. So I think this play to like have Striker here and go for a flux at this choke point is a little bit strange. Why not do it at this choke point? Because then you can drop back to here, and it's even more difficult for the Titans to get through. The more chokes you have to get through, the harder it is as the attacking team. So why did you just give them one for free? I don't really know. I guess it's not terrible, it's just weird. It's just like suboptimal when Shock were playing so well, generally speaking. Okay, but the Titans use Bongo. There is a duel of the Fates with both teams using the, what do you call them? The Beyblades. And they just overwhelm them with the ult. If we slow it down, you'll be able to see how many people still had sound barrier on them when they pushed. So the Titans just aggressively decide, okay, we were forced to use ult, but only one of us is CC'd in the flux. So because only one of us is CC'd, the rest of us can push. So fuck it, let's push. And in fact, Somitsu uses Wraith anyway. So there was nobody caught in the flux. And Smurf's shield is way too far forwards when you're fighting into a team that has full sound barrier. So this is a nice split-second decision to be able to make this call on the fly for Vancouver to get the most out of their sound barrier. It's probably a call by Slime because he immediately pumps on the speed boost. And Slime's just like, fuck it. I've just used ult and... and we didn't really need to because nobody got caught in the flux. So fuck it, let's just run at them. And the question is, would they have been able to run at them if they'd done it there? If you'd done a flux here, first of all, you're much likely to hit more people and they're going to get CC'd, so they're not going to run at you. But also, it's easier to be able to escape. Whereas here, they didn't really have anywhere to escape to. They were at the front of the point. So it's a long way to the back of the point. So Shock kind of gifted them that. But also, it was a very nice on-the-fly call for the Titans. So the Titans are playing better in the second round is what I'm trying to say as well. And already they're looking like they're in a position to win it. Like this is a great position to be able to win it. The Shock invested double support ult there. They used their bongo and their flux, and they used their support ult in the previous fight. Like not the one that just happened, but the one before that. So the Shock now have no ults, and Titans are at 70%. This should be a round win for the Titans. Even though they don't have many ults on the board, they're likely to win the next fight if they play it right. And even if they don't, they're going to still be in a good position because they're in the lead in terms of their time on the clock. Oh, did I mean Smurf? Did I say surf? Okay, so again, the Titans are holding this position. Again, they give up the high ground to Sinatra and Choyobin. And they try and use an aggressive coalescence. Now, as soon as this coalescence comes out aggro, in my opinion, the correct move is just a retreat. Because you don't have any ults to fight with yourself. So, and you're in control of the point. Like, you want to make the fight drag out as long as possible. Instead, Haxal goes for a counterpunch on Sinatra, and the shielding isn't there from Janu. And Haxal only just manages to survive and is able to retreat. But it was insanely close. And then you get this flank from Striker, which I think is great. Let's take a look at this from the side angle. I'll show you where Striker comes from. So here's Striker going for a TP up at the top here. So he's taken this angle where he TPs from here all the way up to the top and drops down on them and then just walks through and gets a great flank. Harsha, head coach for Outlaws. Hey, GG, GG. They announced it. Hey. The Houston Outlaws might not be a dribble team next year. Depending on if they have the money to be able to buy people, they might not be a dribble team. Yeah, I knew. Harsha getting a big payday? I mean, weirdly, the Houston Outlaws have said all season long that they don't have money and like they don't have ownership and stuff. But from what I've heard of their off-season plans, they do have money. So I don't know where it came from, if they just found a little fucking bank vault somewhere and robbed it, or whether they have like been saving all of their money through the season for the off-season because they knew that they would have to spend there or something like that. I don't know. But I would imagine that Harsha's doing pretty well for himself on the Outlaws. I actually don't know. That's pure speculation. We haven't talked about salary at all. Who is Harsha? Harsha is the current assistant, well, not current, but previous assistant coach for the Titans. And he was a assistant coach as well for the San Francisco Shock. He's a guy that knows his shit and is responsible and personable. So, was this one of the huge leaks I was talking about before? Oh no, mate, this isn't a huge move. This is a very tame move compared to some of the shit that's going to happen this offseason. I mean, this is great. I love it. I think it's a cool opportunity, and I'm actually looking forward to what the Houston Outlaws look like next season. But this is tame, my dude. There are some funky fucking things happening in the off-season. Maybe their owner came through? Maybe, but I'm not sure, actually. Oh, yes. Yeah, that's true, actually. He was debated into quitting San Francisco to go to the Justice, but then had his Justice offer revoked. Like, he had already started working for the Washington Justice, and then they pulled away his offer after he had already started working for them, after they told him that the offer was available, something like that. There was a whole bunch of reports on it early on in this season, which was part of the reason why people immediately knew that the Washington Justice would be an absolute dumpster fire. You're going to commission some hot tub juice art? Yeah. This off-season's been so boring. Just wait, dude. Just wait. Holy shit. Bren knows more than I do. Bren's been talking to even more people than I do, and he's just been gobbling up the juice. Now, I also think... do I actually know any of the other? No. I've actually forgotten whether I know any of the other moves that Houston's making in the offseason. Oh, I don't know. I actually don't know any other moves that Houston's making for sure. I'm just speculating when I say this, but I think that Houston should still look to pick up another coach that is like super in-depth strategic, because Harsha knows his shit and he's good with that stuff. But I think that the job of a head coach on the Houston Outlaws will also involve quite a bit of like managing the people and making sure that the team functions well and all of that shit. So I would expect that a lot of the head coaches will also have very dedicated like strategic coaches and analysts and stuff like that. And at the moment, the Houston Outlaws have been a long time without somebody that is really good at that kind of stuff. So I would hope that they are looking to acquire somebody else as well for that kind of role. Okay. Right. Carpe to London was just announced. You can talk about it now. Haha. That would disappoint a number of other teams. Gunbird to Houston? Yeah, Gunbird to Houston would be a cool move, I think. Anyway, let's have a look. Let's continue this VOD review now instead of discussing the juice, because juice can happen later. Yeah, I was talking about this flank from Striker. So Striker TP'd from down here up onto that ledge over here, dropped down, and nobody knows that he's there. I'm gonna wind it backwards, and I'm gonna show you from Striker's point of view, but I'm pretty sure that nobody sees him do this. Like, nobody has any awareness. And this is another weird thing. Normally, the Titans are very good at figuring out what their opponents are doing and reacting to it very quickly. I would say Titans, absolutely, the team that this year reacted to things the fastest. They just seem to be a hive mind. And in this match, they were slow at anticipating things. So, Twilight has no idea. They don't have any idea until they start shooting, until he starts shooting at them. That he's going to be coming from this angle. They haven't scouted it. Nobody's in position to be able to deal with it. This kind of stuff. Now, Slime is now dealing with it, along with Twilight. But the damage has already been done. And I want to go back again and show you from this angle the absolute chaos that this instills within them. So, because Slime comes forward here to try and boop Sinatra away and peel for Haxal, he's a little slow scouting for Striker. Comes back. Now, what do you do when there's a Reaper here? When there's a Reaper here, and you're taking a fight here, and you've had to expend resources into healing Haxal, but they've also had to expend some resources in healing Sinatra, but also there's a fucking coalescence bearing down on you. Guys, what do you think the best play is? What do you think the best play is? Like, where would you move? Yeah, run is the correct answer. They should be trying to, first of all, force out Striker's Wraith form, and then move backwards into this safe area. But Janu's on a really wide flank over here. I don't know why he's taking such a large off angle away from everybody else, because he's never going to be in safety. Unless they win this fight in the courtyard, which, bearing in mind, Violet had had Coalescence at the beginning of this fight. Titans had to play it smart in order to win. He's just in no man's land. And instead, look at the movement of all the people. When the Halt comes in, and Tizzy's fortifying, Hagsal gets out, Slime gets out, Twilight tries to move out, Janu is trying to move out, but Tizzy moves the exact wrong way. And then Janu has to come in and save them. So Sominsu and Tizzy are just on the wrong page there. They didn't understand what to do. They got lost in the moment, they didn't get it, and they were trying to move away from the Reaper and angle back over this way. If you try and retreat this way, you've lost the fight anyway. It's worth trying to back off and maybe dying, because if you take this angle, you're just dead anyway. You're just gonna slowly trickle all the rest of your players to death as well. So, of course, they easily kill Tizzy. Of course, they easily kill Sominsu, the two players that were massively out of position. And as the Titans get back onto the point, they're going to just try and delay 99%, this kind of thing. Janu's already dead. Haxal is pretty weak. Slime dies. I don't know why these guys are staggering rather than resetting, but fair enough. You're already at like 90%. Once you're at 90%, it's donezo. Don't worry about it. Okay. So, who wins this round? Is it the team that has Flux when their enemy doesn't have Sound Barrier and also has a Doomfist ult and is also at 97%? Or is it 6 Shocky Boys? Hi, Bren. Oh, we've got a visit from special guest Bren again. Hey, Bren, you got some more bread for me?
No.
Are you here to learn?
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Bren, I've got a little challenge for you here. Who do you think wins this round? Is it the team on 97% with an ult advantage, or is it the San Francisco Shock?
The Titans.
That's where you're wrong. And if you remembered the grand finals, then you would...
It should have been the Titans.
It should have been the Titans. You're right, Bren. That was a smart answer. Now, Twilight here pokes his head out the door, and everybody on the Shock thinks that Twilight is the entirety of the Titans, because they all go over here, and then Titans give them the great debate. Now, I don't really know why they all run after the Moira, but the Titans just get in for free here. So even then, like, they've managed to get in for free. They've managed to get completely in for free. They've got an opportunity to go for a punch. Doesn't really land with anything. But they use this Sigma ult, and it's dribbly. Let's go back and watch this again, because my word, what a dribble play we've got going on here. So, shields are down. Haxel gets a counterpunch onto Sinatra, but takes a rock to the face. Smurf's shield is bust. The ult comes out of Janu, and I don't know what the fuck he's doing. I mean, I just cannot tell you what in the Lord's name he is hoping to achieve. Because this circle is so big. Like, how could you achieve anything with this? But alright, you force out the sound barrier. The sound barrier is forced out from the San Francisco Shock. But Slime's at 94%. So, why have you ulted when your team doesn't have the sound barrier to be able to reply with? I don't know. I actually don't know. I mean, I can't give you an answer to that perfectly logical question. I also can't tell you why Twilight is on his own in Timbuk fucking 2 trying to help a Doomfist 1v1 with his Coalescence. Because when I think of Coalescence value, this ain't it, Chief. Coalescing a Doomfist who flies into space is not my idea of big Moira value. In the meantime, Tizzy is getting shit pushed back up his anus by Striker. So, all in all, not a good play from the old Vancouver Titans. Actually, a horrible, choking mess of a play. So, fucking dreadful, if I was to use those words. So now what have we got? We've got a scenario where, okay, Moth used his sound barrier. I forgot the fucking greatest part of this. This fight continues. I forgot that happened. Oh God, it's Dallas Fuel-esque. Watch this. Watch this. So, absolute Papega war. Janu throws his ult away. They don't have sound barrier to be able to reply because, of course they don't, because they just decided to int. Twilight uses his coalescence, doesn't get any value out of it. The Flux doesn't catch anybody, apart from Striker, who just Wraith forms out of it anyway. Oh, and I guess they get Moth. And then, let's see what happens here. They've actually managed to do a fuck ton of damage with Haxel. So, Haxel's managed to get Choyobin and Violet pretty weak. Slime decides to commit to this fight, which is a 5 versus 5, but the problem is, this sound barrier is when people are spread out all over the place. So now it's a 4v4. It seems like this would be okay, right? Let's try and find where everybody is. What's the fucking button to pull up this shit? No, where is it? Is it this shit? Spectate overlay. Right. Let's look at where everybody is. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 with the sound barrier. We've got Choyobin over here, 2, 3, 4. If these guys from the Vancouver Titans push forwards, they're going to win. They're going to be able to overwhelm Smurf. They'll be able to win that fight. They've taken the Orisa out of the situation. All good in the hood. You don't have to worry about Choyobin. He's dead anyway. Just leave him be. Instead, the Vancouver Titans have the bright idea of splitting up and going aggro and backwards at the same time. So you have Slime try and finish off this kill, which, okay, if you just want everyone to use your sound barrier to kill Choyobin, that's also fine. All you need is one pick to be able to win a team fight anyway. So that's fine. You don't have to win. You don't have to kill like 3 people. You can just kill Choyobin if you want. But what you can't do is leave your fucking Lucio, the only person with speed, out there and try and chase these people on the low ground. And Janu, poor Janu and Sominsu don't have a clue what they're doing. They don't know whether to go back and help Choyobin. They don't know whether to go forward. They are just fucking lost in no man's land. Lost without a purpose in life. They do not have a clue what they're up to. So they come forward here. Janu and Sominsu. Sominsu comes onto Violet. Tries to get the kill on him. Sinatra over here obliterates Janu and gets finished off by Violet. So you've got Sominsu trying to fight a 1v1 with Violet in the backline. And Violet doesn't give a fuck. He knows he's immortal. He's like, yeah, come at me, Sominsu. You ain't doing shit. Choyobin's been finished off at the back, but he was going to die anyway, so it's kind of useless. And you've just essentially fed one of your most important players into the void. So this is a total mess from the Vancouver Titans in a fight where they should have won. They had the ult advantage. They had an opportunity to push properly. Even after they beefed with Janu's ult, they could have still won this. And instead, they throw it away. So now the Titans are getting people back. They've got Moth back in the fight. Violet's always been here, so they've got their backline solid. Sinatra's pretty unassailable because they've only got Sominsu, who's had to Wraith form away anyway. And they've got Smurf on the point because they were never able to kill Smurf because they didn't focus him. So this is now just a horrible situation for Titans. I want to point out another, what I consider to be a giga throw. Keep your eyes on Janu here, who has just thrown his Flux away in the previous fight, and then potentially inted. I mean, I don't want to say that he did fully int because I think he thought that everyone was going forwards, but I believe the man is about to swap to the furry gerbil character. Now, Bren, I'm going to ask you, as an expert of the furry gerbil,
Yeah.
when you only need to win one team fight, and you have 24 seconds plus overtime to work with, do you need the speedy gerbil man to get back to the point, or would the meta very powerful Sigma dude be better?
I think the meta very powerful Sigma dude would be better because the gerbil is like a wet blanket in neutral fights.
Ah, yes. No, you're totally correct. And what is Titan's strength? Oh, the neutral fight.
fights.
The neutral fight. Right. Yeah. And what happens if they don't win the neutral fight here?
They lose.
Alt. They're going to fucking die.
They lose.
They're going to mega die.
They lose the map.
Now, I suppose you could make the argument that they're in such an alt disadvantage that unless they win immediately, they're fucked. So like maybe you could make an argument that the Wrecking Ball is going to help them win like within the next 10 seconds, and if they don't win within the next 10 seconds, they're screwed anyway. But I just think this was a bad decision. I think Titans had all the opportunities in the world to win previously, and now in the final team fight. Oh, I want to show you this as well. The Clown Fiesta just continues. The Clown Fiesta continues. Let me show you this. I've been talking about the Titans and their shoddy communication this entire time. Look at this fucking play. Let me see if I can even find an angle to be able to showcase this properly. It's in the bloody roof. Okay, here we go. So, as the Shock are coming back to the point, the Titans have sent Slime around the side, who had just killed Choyobin. Slime was off on his own fucking one-man mission, determined to increase his statistics in the grand finals. Janu comes back on the Wrecking Ball, and they're going to set up. Now, I would like to point your attention to Sominsu, who has just teleported in. I would say that's about 4 light years away from the rest of his team, roughly speaking. There is more distance between Sominsu and Twilight than there has ever been between any two members of the San Francisco Shock. Chat, if you had to estimate this distance, what would you say? This is like from Perth to Sydney. Mm-hmm. This is fucking enormous.
Yeah.
But this
distance is the sun to the moon.
Yeah. You know, if you folded a piece of paper 42 times on itself, it would reach from here to the moon.
Play the clip.
Yeah, so this is really far away. But I don't think this is Sominsu throwing. I think this might be someone told him, like, we're going forwards now or some shit. I don't know. I've got to watch this from Sominsu's point of view because it just makes no sense. Oh my god. I mean, this comes off the back of him being unable to kill Violet as well through the coalescence, and they just end up losing this team fight, which they absolutely should have won. But okay, let's speed it up a little bit. They come back in. No, this is a solid int from Sominsu. I'm being real here. How does he think the rest of his team's going to be able to catch him? What does he think's going to happen? He is teleporting right in front of the Mothy Boy and Sinatra. Sinatra just punches him right in the head and then uppercuts him. He has to use Wraith Form immediately to get out. It's the most telegraphed TP of all time. Janu, I just want to put the camera on Janu now, and we're going to watch the feed mobile in progress.
Anyway.
Why is their strat for overtime put Janu on Wrecking Ball? I've never seen it work. I've never seen it work in this meta. Oh, yeah, nearly got a boop.
Almost.
Yeah. Nearly won.
Oh, almost. Go on, Janu. Go on. You're almost doing it. Yep. Very close. Yep, any minute now you're going to get the boop.
He got fluxed.
Oh?
He got fluxed as a ball.
Yeah. No, that's...
Oh, what a throw from the Titans.
That ain't it, Chief.
What a throw.
How many maps you do?